Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football, the state of the South Carolina Gamecocks. This is a question I put a lot of thought into over the last couple of weeks, and I'll just be very transparent right off the bat. It ain't no secret. We talk a lot about this program. The reason is the amount of support this fan base has continued to show to the boys over the last couple of years. And I'll say this, it's a heck of a lot more fun to get up here and talk about South Carolina when they're winning football games on Saturday. I am rooting for South Carolina to figure it out, not only in the back half of 2025, but largely in the offseason going into 2026. Now, the real question is what needs to change? And I think the first way you have to address this is the future of Shane Beamer as the head coach. I'll tell you one thing I ain't gonna do because look, I'm on Twitter with many of y'all. I'm on the message boards with many of y'all. I see the frustration that a lot of South Carolina fans have, and I promise you, I ain't gonna get up here and talk about and tell the South Carolina fans not to have frustration with Shane Beamer because that frustration it's placed correctly. You could make the argument that when you have a quarterback like Lenore Sellers, who I firmly believe is one of the most talented quarterbacks that we see in the sport, it is a fireable offense to trot out the offense that we've seen South Carolina trot out continually in 2025. But I do think he deserves 2026 to fix it. And I'll give you a couple of reasons why. Most notably, continuity in this era of college football to me is massive, especially during this offseason where I look at Florida's going to have a new head coach. LSU is going to have a new head coach. Auburn might have a new head coach. Missouri might have to replace Coach Drink. Ole Miss might have to replace Lane Kiffin. Mike Norvell is going to probably be out at Florida State. All of these top programs that South Carolina competes with, specifically on the recruiting trail, but also on the football field in conference, there's going to be a lot of chaos. There's going to be a lot of rebuilding. I think the programs that can find continuity, it's going to be a massive weapon for South Carolina. So I think having Shane Beamer and giving him the chance to fix it in 2026 and not have to go full rebuild like a lot of other programs will have to, I think that can be a weapon for South Carolina. Secondly, here, blue chip ratio, talent acquisition. Where is this roster going for South Carolina? Look, in 2026, just taking a quick look, there's a very good chance that South Carolina is going to be in that blue chip ratio, like, meaning they're going to have the raw talent to go compete at the highest level of the sport. It tells you where the program might be going. Now, on the flip side, there are changes that need to be made, and that's the bulk of this conversation. We said it last week, and I'll say it again. It feels like South Carolina's really far off, right? Because they're not winning a lot of football games in 2025. Can I just throw a hypothetical out there? What if you just had an average offensive line? Because right now, South Carolina's offensive line, it not only grades out this way, but you just kind of watch the tape too and say that this is an offensive line that might be the worst unit that you see in the entire Power Four. That is a death sentence when you're talking about playing in the SEC. My hypothetical is this: what would it look like? What would South Carolina's record be if you had an average SEC offensive line? Because I promise you, it'd look a heck of a lot different. And so I guess the point of me trying to say this is, it feels like South Carolina is really far off. I'm not sure how actually far off they are. And then the second thing I'm looking at is look at the gap in the SEC. It used to be really wide, right? You had Georgia and Alabama at the top of this conference. It was a massive gap, and it was a bunch of other programs. That gap is quickly closing. And I think you want to give Shane Beamer and give South Carolina the opportunity to have some continuity in an offseason of chaos to get it right in 2026. Now, again, things need to change. That's what we're going to get into. Before we do, and as always, the South Carolina fans, number one, appreciate you guys. Has it been frustrating talk about this football team the last couple of weeks? Yeah, ain't no secret about it. And the amount of support this fan base continues to show the boys It's amazing. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Hey, secondly, let it fly. We're going to be all over the board. We're going to talk about some coaching staff changes, but we're also going to talk about some early transfer portal needs. Would love to hear from you guys. And if y'all don't agree with me and my take of Shane Beamer, I would love to hear that too. The beauty of this is I know my opinion is not fact. So let it fly in the comment section. Appreciate you guys. Without further ado, let's get into it now. Coaching staff. The coaching hires that Shane Beamer is about to make in the offseason, they are going to make or break his time at South Carolina. If he does not get it right, he's probably getting fired after 2026. If he gets it right, man, the South Carolina team could cook. Now, I think a lot of people want to start with the offensive coordinator. We're going to talk about that. I think it starts with the offensive line. It is such a disaster. Now, I will say this, it's a product of coaching. I don't think the personnel is probably where it needs to be. But look at the offensive line depth chart. And I know there's been some injuries too. I don't mean to discount that. I mean, Tree Babalade was a blue chip prospect. Josiah Thompson was a blue chip prospect. Trevon Baugh's in year 3 now. You look at a guy like Nick Sharp was a multi-year starter at Wake Forest. Boaz Stanley was a highly graded transfer coming from Troy. I don't think the personnel is not as bad as the way this offensive line's performing, which I think is a direct correlation to just not having good enough coaching along this group. You need to get your offensive line coach hire right. And we'll talk about the way South Carolina can address this in the portal, but I think it really does start with getting an offensive line coach that can make this thing happen. There will be a new offensive coordinator too. Hey, before we get into the OC, why are these coaching hires so important? Go look at a team like Indiana. Go look at a team like Georgia Tech in the ACC. Go look at a team like Vanderbilt in the SEC. What do all of these teams have in common? It's elite coaching staffs. I mean, I'm talking about some of the best coaching staffs that you see in the sport. I think South Carolina's got on the defensive side of the football. There's not many coaching staffs I like better. In fact, I'll say this: the defensive coaching staff and what they've done with this defense, extremely impressive. I don't think any South Carolina fans thought we were going to get this quality of a defense with all the talent that we lost from that 2024 version of South Carolina. I got all the confidence in the world in terms of the coaches that South Carolina has on defense. On offense, I'm not sure. Specifically as your offensive coordinator and specifically on the offensive line coach. And why is it so important specifically for Shane Beamer? Shane Beamer's not an X's and O's genius. And look, I ain't going to get up here and say I have Shane Beamer has forgotten more about the sport of football than I've ever learned in my life. I ain't getting up here and saying Shane Beamer doesn't know football. That would be a very irresponsible claim to make. Shane Beamer did not get his job at South Carolina because he's a genius football coach. Outside of special teams, he's pretty damn good there. He got his job because he's a leader. He can be that CEO, which is really important in this era. But what that makes really important, you got to get the coaching staff hires around him because he's not a coach that, hey, we got problems on the offense. Shane Beamer can't just put his hands all over it and fix it. No, Coach Sark can. Kalen DeBoer can at Alabama. And you think Lane Kiffin can at Ole Miss. Shane Beamer's not one of those coaches. Needs to get the coaching staff right. And I think there are some options. We've talked about the options, but there are a couple of offensive coordinators that I think will be free agents that have offensive line coaches that they have working under them that are really good. That could work out beautifully. Like Coach Koldnicki at Penn State with Phil Trotman coming over on the offensive line, or Gus Malzahn at Florida State with Herb Hand working under him as an offensive line coach. I mean, that to me, you make those kind of hires, my confidence in this football team in 2026 dramatically improves. That's number one. Number two, early look at portal needs. And I think you got to start at the quarterback position. What's the future of Lenore Sellers? I don't think any South Carolina fan would blame Lenore Sellers for going to the NFL draft or testing the transfer portal waters. I don't think Lenore Sellers has been great, but he's gotten absolutely screwed. I think project number one, if you're Shane Beamer, is doing everything you can to get Lenore Sellers back for one more year. Number one, because he's a really, really good quarterback. But number two, he makes the offensive coordinator job at South Carolina so freaking attractive. There's going to be so many offensive coordinators that say, "Hey, I'm interested in South Carolina. I'm a hell of a lot more interested because I get to coach a guy like Lenore Sellers." Now, if Lenore Sellers does not come back, then you're probably looking at maybe an Oklahoma situation. Can you coordinator that's going to bring his quarterback too, like what Ben Arbuckle did with John Mateer? We'll see if that plays out. Kind of hard to make those. If Lenore Sellers is not on this roster next year, you need to go get a quarterback because I think it's very clear the fact that Luke Doty is the quarterback too tells you I don't think you have a quarterback that South Carolina trusts as their starter in 2026. Now, Cutter Woods, the freshman, does intrigue me. I don't know if Shane Beamer wants to put all his eggs in Cutter Woods' baskets when Shane Beamer is going to be coaching for his job in 2026. Wide receiver position, maybe one. Depends on Nick Harbor, but I think you love some of the freshmen like Brian Rowe, Donovan Murph, Jaden Sellers, Mazio Bennett. We'll see if Nick Harbor and Vandravius Jacobs been awesome, by the way. We'll see if Nick Harbor comes back. You feel good about the young wide receiver room. And the tight end position, you'll need a body, especially with Michael Smith leaving, right? Brady Hunt's gone, Jordan Dingle's gone. You're going to need probably two tight ends in the portal. Offensive line. That's by far the biggest need. And here's the thing, purely competition based. I don't think you promise a starting spot to a single current South Carolina offensive lineman. That's not to say Tree Babalade is not going to start somewhere on South Carolina's offensive line, or Josiah Thompson or Trevon Blah. They very well might. You have to bring in competition to make them earn it. If you're South Carolina, you might just go full Florida State. And what I mean by that is Florida State went to the portal and completely brought in a brand new offensive line. I'll say this, they did a pretty damn good job. Like, I'm looking at Florida State and say, Florida State's got problems. That offensive line ain't one of them. It's a pretty damn good offensive line. If you fix the offensive line and you get Lenore Sellers back for a year, this team's got bones. Ain't no worry about it. And then you go to the defensive side of the football and say, this is a unit that I think is going to be much better next year. Now, you have to replace a couple of really good players. I think Brian Thomas has really come on as a football player. I think Nick Barrett has played himself into an NFL draft pick. Nick Barrett's been freaking awesome for South Carolina, but, Troy Pikes is only a redshirt freshman, a redshirt sophomore this year. Brownblood Dindy's got eligibility left. Xavier Hardy, I know, is a guy they're really high on. You got a couple of freshmen you think can contribute next year. You probably need a body or two on the defensive line. Outside of that, I'm looking at and saying, doing pretty damn good. You got a duo of young backers in Fred Johnson and Sean Murphy that are going to be really good. I'll look at the secondary and say maybe a body or two depending on some decisions that are made. Brandon Sissy, I think, is good enough to go to the NFL draft. I don't know if he's a first-round NFL draft pick. We'll see what happens there. The offensive line, a couple of bodies on the defensive line. If you get those right, you can see a future of this roster in 2026 being, especially on the offensive line. And so I guess what I'm trying to say here is that a really disappointing 2025 season thus far for South Carolina. I don't think this team's as far away as it feels like. And if you fix some of the big problems with this football team, I wouldn't be surprised if you can see South Carolina be damn competitive the 2026 year, excuse me. I'll tell you this, it's going to be a really, really busy offseason. And what I mean by that is, regardless, if Shane Beamer's not at South Carolina and we got a new head coach, it's going to be busy for a lot more reasons. But regardless of that, even if Shane Beamer's back in 2026, it's desperation mode. That seat is scalding hot for Shane Beamer. I promise you he will be as aggressive as we've seen Shane Beamer. I shouldn't promise you, but I feel comfortable saying that Shane Beamer is going to be really, really aggressive in the portal because he's coaching for his job in 2026. We'll have a lot of player movement. Feel good about that. All right, we'll pause it there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.